Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Detonation Point presented by Elastio. My name is Matt O'Neill, and my guest today is Hugh No. And I'm really excited to talk to Hugh. I have met Hugh a long time ago, and we're going to get into the conversation on both where Hugh was, where he is now, and common sense recommendations to help you and your company protect themselves from cyber attacks. But first, a little background. So I met Hugh I first came across Hugh in November of 2011 when I was with the US Secret Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I was looking for an interesting case. And I had spent most of my career at that point working cases targeting bad actors who were buying or stealing and selling payment cards online. And I happened to read an article from Brian Krebs from KrebsOnSecurity.com. Shout out, Brian. And the article or the piece was called How Much Is My Identity Worth? And it talked about a website called superget.info in which the users could purchase PII, personally identifiable information, on just about every American. And so I thought, well, that's an interesting case. And so I did what most enterprising agents would do is get online and start making purchases. Because if you're not familiar with how the federal system works, is in order to establish venue for a federal prosecution, you have to show that a crime is being committed in the district in which you're working, which in that case was New Hampshire for me. So I started buying PII and really kind of trying to understand where did Hugh get the PII from, how much detail it was. And at the time, obviously, I didn't know it was Hugh running the operation. So what was interesting next is Hugh must have gotten word, and we'll ask him about that. Well, I'll ask you now. How long did it take for you to realize that Brian wrote that article?
It took like almost 2 months
Okay.
because one of my friends she shared with me that somebody talked about my website on the ClearNet. And one of the security article mentioned about the website. I was very shocked at first.
You also changed the domain name from superget.info to findget.me, which I thought
Correct.
was a little bold. Was that an intentional, basically, screw you to law enforcement and to Krebs?
Not really, because I was thinking like I need to change the domain name and also like redesign the whole website, try to avoid
Okay.
law enforcement.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I took it as a challenge. I said, okay, well, game on, let's go. And so, so over the course of the investigation, we came across the fact that it was Hugh that was running the website. And if you're not all that familiar with how federal law enforcement works, a lot of it is doing search warrants on email accounts, reviewing those email accounts, looking for any artifacts that could tie that person to that email account. It helps defeat what my awesome prosecutors used to say, the SOTI defense. Some other dude did it. How do we prove that Hugh was responsible for running that website? And so over the course of the investigation, we came across Hugh's personal email addresses. He was nice enough to have a copy of his passport in there, and he had flight information. So we had a pretty good idea it was Hugh. The problem was for federal law enforcement in the U.S. Hugh is located in Vietnam, and at the time, the US didn't have an extradition agreement in place with the US. And so we couldn't really go that route. The other problem was early on, we didn't know where Hugh was getting the PII from. And we wanted to try to figure that piece out as well, because it's really hard to figure out where stolen PII came from. So, Hugh, walk us through where did you initially get the PII from, and then the
Yeah.
evolution as to where it was towards the end of your run as the probably the most prolific identity thief in US history.
Back then, I was searching for U.S. identity all over the places. After a talk with some of my hackers friends in Vietnam as a internet cafe, we talked over the conversation we mentioned about like U.S. identity, social security numbers, and stuff like that. So I put a lot of time, almost a month, to do research, information gathering, everything about US identity. And then I found out there are a list of data brokers in the US which I can target or even like try to find any like vulnerabilities and try to hack them. So at first I got into Locate one of the US data broker.
When you say got into,
To
you mean you hacked into it?
Right, I hacked into them. At first, I just used like technical hacking stuff. Back then, not many companies they focusing on cyber security. I didn't
Default
know.
passwords, brute
Right.
forcing, that kind of stuff. Okay.
So I hacked into them, and I found out, there's not much information over there. So I moved from Locate Plus to Microbuild. The Microbuild company is, I think, located in New Jersey. So I got into their system and gathering a list of all the existing customers logins, and I use that customer logins, and then I gain access into their account and making queries and selling into other cyber criminal. That's why I opened the website.
And the
Right,
website was connected directly to the, at that time, the microbuilt,
right, the
essentially back
Microbuild.
in.
But it couldn't last long because they fixed the vulnerability. So I just, kind of like we play cat and mouse games. They fix
Right.
it, I hack it. So I got tired. That's why I come up with a new plan. I will falsify the documents on the identities, impersonate as a private investigator, and then I use that fake documents to impersonate as a private investigator in Singapore, and then I use that license to sign up for an account at Code Venture company. They also a US data broker as well too. So I gained
So
the access over there for almost 2 years.
so we have you basically saying, "Hey, I was doing my due diligence and I was looking for ways to identify, obtain, and monetize stolen PII. And then I gained unauthorized access, right? And then from that point, the problem was because it wasn't consistent, then you move to a different technique, which was social engineering. What the most important thing I would imagine to you was probably to make sure you had durable access to the PII.
Yes, because at first, like I didn't think this is good business. When I first opened the website in the first week, I saw a lot of money coming into my wallet. That's why when I see that, I told myself, man, this is real money right there and very easy
Yeah.
money. That's why, I have to find out a way, try to set up a stable account at a legitimate company so I can pay them
Right.
without the need to hack them. So that's why I got
Yeah.
into like a venture.
And I remember that I was buying PII from you in an undercover capacity, and I was buying Bitcoin at when it was at like $95 or $100 a Bitcoin.
Right.
And so
Pretty
what
cheap.
was funny? Oh yeah, really cheap. So what was
I wish
fun?
you still have some.
Well, funny
Oh,
story.
man.
So what happened was is I had an undercover account in which the process was you would use funds from the government. I would then buy Bitcoin, and then I would provide a receipt back to the government to say I bought Bitcoin. But in those days, the government hadn't adopted to the rapid change in, well, what is Bitcoin? So most of the admin clerks didn't even know what Bitcoin was, and they thought, oh well, he bought Bitcoin in undercover capacity. It's over, right? There was no more transactions. But the reality was is I was just converting cash into digital assets in order to buy stuff from you and from other people. And so I probably had 3,000 and change in Bitcoin. And then I got transferred and I turned the wallet over to a friend of mine. And when he retired, because he was one of the most prolific, best case agents ever, was the case agent for the TJX hack and all these other things.
Right.
So when he retired in 2019, he says, "Hey Matt, have you looked to see how much is in that account you turned over to me?" And I said, "No, I have no idea." And he said, "Well, it's how much do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000." And he said, "No, it was something like $680,000." So whenever anybody says, "Hey, Matt, have you ever made money on Bitcoin?" I said, "Yeah, I made the government a lot of money on it. I never invested in it myself." But
Oh my
it
God.
turns out so. And the great irony was, I was then back in headquarters in the position to have to then explain to people where all this money came from, and it was because of those early sort of transactions that we did, and
Oh
the
my
account
God.
lay dormant for like 5 years. So did you think when you were running that website that there was going to come a time where somebody would realize this is odd that a private investigator out of Singapore was doing hundreds of thousands of queries a
Yeah.
month? Did that thought cross your mind?
Yes. I remember I was very worried and feeling something is not right when I received an email from Code Venture in the middle of 2011 or 12. I remember. Um, the guy he emailed me and he told why I make so many queries into the API of Code Ventures, and I told him I have to explain to him so many things. And I remember one of the things that I mentioned that I was a big private investigator in Singapore who have like big company like Microsoft, Google, and Yahoo to do background checks for their employees, right? And that time, so they just everything just become good after that. They just kind of like let me
They
go
just went away?
through, right?
Wow.
Just walk
I
away
did not know
and
that.
keep
I did
going.
not know that. Yeah. That is also interesting because Court Ventures was eventually purchased by a big data broker,
Yeah,
and then they didn't catch it.
yeah,
Yeah, they didn't catch it for many, many months. So what wound up happening was, again, going through thousands and thousands of emails, I found one email late on a Friday afternoon. As all my friends in law enforcement know, that's when you find stuff, unfortunately. I found an email that you sent to somebody directing them to pay 20 some $1,000 to Court Ventures. Who was that person?
that's one of my money launderer.
How prolific and important is it, do you think, for law enforcement to go after third party money launderers?
I believe that's one of the way, very important way, because everything at the end of the day is money. So
Right?
the threat actor or the hacker or the scammer, they need some way somehow to receive the money, either into like fiat money or cryptocurrencies nowadays, right?
Yeah, and so we used to always say that third-party money launderers are one of the centers of
Very
gravity that
important.
enable cybercrime to flourish,
Yeah, very
right?
important.
Yeah,
Because
and
without
so
them, there is no without the money laundry service, there is no way for me to be able to keep doing this for years, right? Very difficult.
would you say that third-party money launderers are equally important in nearly every ecosystem of cybercrime, from ransomware to uh, pig butchering
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
yeah. Fortunately, in the U.S., we have some outstanding law enforcement that operate under the follow the money methodology, where I used to always say to the agents, if you have a question, the answer is always money. So what wound up happening was I found that email and I thought, boy, that's odd. Why is my identity thief out of Vietnam, who's selling lots and lots of PII, sending money to a US based company? So I Googled the Court Ventures and found out the very first thing that popped up was Court Ventures recently acquired by Experian. That is when we had a really good idea where you were getting the PII from for the bulk queries. So what wound up happening was I reached out immediately to Experian and they found your account really quickly. They were really good partners. But again, that was still one of the challenges.
oh
So the
man,
other challenge is you were still in
right,
Vietnam. And so
right,
what do you do? A lot of people would say,
yeah,
why didn't you just shut down the website? If I shut down your domains through legal process, you would have just had
right,
a new domain up in what, five
easily,
minutes? Right.
5 minutes.
So, so what we wound up doing was I had some experience because I had two of the best federal prosecutors probably ever that I worked with on a regular basis. We were doing lure operations for this very reason: is how do you arrest somebody when they're in a place that we can't get to. And
Yeah.
so we had done operations in the past where we were luring people from Romania, and I was posing as women, I was posing as all these other things. But I knew for you, that probably wouldn't have worked because
Right.
you were making a
Good,
lot of
good one.
money. So we put our heads together because I reviewed 300,000 of your emails. So I kind of knew what your pressure points were. So what we
Yeah,
wound up doing was we reached out to Experian and basically said, "Hey,
that's
shut
that.
down this account, but give me an hour." And
Right.
do you recall what
I
happened
remember
in the
that.
hour before?
I
You
remember
got
that.
it. You got an email from somebody, right?
Yes, I got
Yes.
email from a guy from Mark. Right.
Yes. Mark from
Right.
the UK. And
For the
what?
UK.
Yeah. And do you remember what the email said?
Yeah, he mentioned that I heard about that your data service provider got shut down and stuff like that. So if you need new data like US and UK data, just let me know. I can connect you with the some of the company. He say like his fan in the US want to meet me up. You know, in
Yep.
Australia, in New York. He give me some few options, few
Yes.
cities. Right.
Eh, yeah, he sure did. When you got that first email, did you realize this is going to be a problem for you?
At that time, I was thinking like law enforcement already find out about this,
Yeah.
and I was shocked. But at the same time, like the money just blind my eyes. I
Sure.
said, man, because I was marking up to like more than 120K per month, and then
Right.
I
It's pretty
dropped to
good.
like virtually nothing, and I was shocked. I really want to get back to that level
Yes.
again.
And you were making 120,000 a month selling PII. What,
Right.
what was the average salary annual for somebody in Vietnam in those days?
Roughly around 150 USD
So you were making an
a month.
extraordinarily large amount of money in
Right.
Vietnam at the time. So you get the email from Mark in the UK basically saying, "Hey, I know what you're doing. I'm going to shut you down. You have to come through me."
Right.
And then he shut you down. You get into some other accounts, and then Mark from the UK reaches back out to you again and says, "I see
Yeah.
what you're doing," because your website went back up, and
Right.
then it gets shut down again. And that's when you started replying to Mark.
Almost a few months when I
Yes, it
thought
did.
about Mark, I said, man, let's try contact this guy. Maybe he can help me out. But it's still feel like something fishy going on. But at the
Yes.
same time, I don't care about anything. It's just money, money, and money. And
So
that's why I told myself, let's try.
and then you agreed to go to Guam to meet
Right.
Mark, and the idea was to meet in person, finalize an agreement so you could have
Yep,
long-term durable access to PII.
that's true.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what was your level of concern about being arrested? Because you had to have known you were coming into a United States territory.
I never thought, it should happen like a Hollywood movie that I will get arrested at the airport. Before I came to Guam, right? I had a bad feeling that if I go there, something bad will happen to me. But I didn't listen to my gut feeling.
Like you said, you were making over $1 million a year,
Yeah,
and now it came to a stop. And so this person who had been engaging with you for many months prior,
yeah.
and we were not very aggressive. We were waiting for you to come to us,
I think that's one of the good strategy though,
right?
because if Mark keep pushing me to come to
Yes.
Guam or to come to the US.
What's crazy is a lot of the tactics that we used are being used and deployed every day by scam factories in Southeast Asia. It's really just social engineering and
Yeah,
really trying to understand a person. And when you start to engage with people over time, their guard goes down. Obviously, we've seen this huge, massive spike in scams, and we are in the era of scams right now, I
yeah.
believe. How much of that do you think that because people over time let their guard down on communications online, like what do you attribute it to?
One of the things that I always tell the people, that number one thing is about data. Our data been shown on the dark web or been leaked, kind of like
Hmm.
without our consent or without our intention at all. Nowadays, right, easier to get scammed because they have real-time data,
Yeah. They have everything
right?
on they have everything on us. And also we have a very high degree of self-disclosure. We tell
Yeah,
everybody everything. What did we have for dinner
true.
last night? Like as if anybody cares. But we are in the era, and it started in 2000 with the huge increase in mobile phones, but we essentially
Right.
went from people who do things to people who film things. For me to really kind of I know you, I had to go through all of your emails. But
That's
now
true.
if you could just target somebody's social media and you're going to learn the same things,
That's
the
true.
same vulnerabilities and things like that. No.
One of the things that I've been see in the past 2 years, I saw the chance of like kind of like real-time data. I mean that the real-time data of the person. What I mean is not about like your identity. Identity right now you can buy, you can search it on the dark web, right? You can buy off that from the hackers. Very easy. But the real-time data at the moment is also because they gain access into the internal system. So they know exactly what's going on at this moment or the future of
Yeah.
that person. For instance, that you bought something on Amazon, and they know exactly you bought that, and the post office they're about to deliver to you, whatever. So they know exactly the point that you're about to receive that. So they can be easily to impersonate as a post officer and lure you into a scam or a phishing link.
Gotcha.
That's why they
Yeah.
can easily to manipulate anybody. Even the people with high tech knowledge, they know about tech. They still get
Right.
scammed. Some
Sure.
of my friends, they are hacker too. They got scammed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the scam epidemic preys upon people's goodness in many instances. Some
Yeah,
instances it's greed, some instances it's loneliness, some instances you name it. But
that's true.
it is it remains it will remain a problem because of our connectivity, in my view, to social media, and it is a huge opportunity for bad actors. The attack surface has
Yeah,
expanded dramatically, both for businesses and for individuals. So to put a bow on our story, so you get arrested obviously in Guam,
in Guam. Right.
and the whole I of course made the joke, fine to get me, yeah, we did, and but you made a very tactical decision early on that you were going to be cooperative. Tell me why that was.
Because I thought that the game is over. I couldn't get
Right.
away anymore. The only way, for me to kind of like fix this problem, not only of myself, and also for other people as well. When the federal court shared one of the letter from the victims, it touched
Yep.
me. It touched me a lot. I still remember that letter. It was mentioning about her story that this victim identity get lost because of me, and
Right.
then the bad actor was using that for tax return, and also the choice her credit score, so she couldn't afford to buy food for her kids, and also afford to buy a house and pay her apartment, whatever. So I was feeling very bad, and that's why I choose, like try to collaborate and cooperate with the U.S. government to be able to not only about to solve my case, but also at same point, like I mean,
And it was our experience that when we lured people in, everyone cooperated because you can't say some other dude did it. We've been
right,
talking to you. We know you're the guy that was selling the PII, and
that's true.
you're in Guam. And so after we arrested Hugh, I took
Yeah.
over his identity with his cooperation, of course, for 2 years. So you were my alter ego for 2 years. So I had to learn. I read so many emails that you wrote. I had to write like you. Anyway, so but in those instances, uh, you were cooperative. What was your initial sentence? And then what wound up happening to you as a result of the cooperation? How many years did that save you from federal prison? Meaning, how
Yeah,
many more years
like
did you have to do?
at that time I released in 2000 December 2019, right? I still got like almost 7 years. I have to do
No, but how many more did you have to do? If you didn't
7
get
years,
released early, so you would have had to do 7 more years.
7 years more,
Okay.
7 more
Yeah,
years.
yeah. And one of the things I think that a lot of folks don't
Right.
realize, especially from the perspective of law enforcement, is agents don't generally care much about what happens when
Yeah.
somebody gets sentenced. Because my job was to
Yeah.
present evidence to have you convicted, but the sentencing has nothing to do with me. That was
Right.
something that moved on. So I asked because I genuinely don't remember. I remember you
Right.
got hit with like 14, 15 years in federal prison or something, like 14 years. So when you were in prison, how many people came up to you to try to learn basically how to scam or how to
Oh, yeah.
steal PII? Was
Many,
that a
many,
pretty many? Yes. So
many.
is it safe to say that federal prisons are sort of like a college for criminals? Yeah.
There are many scammers. They
Right.
approached me and they was asking about my case and they were trying to be friend with me and they trying to keep in touch with me when I get home. I told them I ate too much ramen noodle already, so don't contact me.
Before you got arrested, had you ever had a bologna sandwich before?
No, no way. When I got into prison, that's what I eat. I kind of like I eat every day.
So you get back to Vietnam, and you made a decision long before you got released, because one of the reasons why you got released was
Yeah,
because you were so cooperative, and it was very evident to everyone that was around you that you were a rehabilitated person.
yeah,
And so then you come back to Vietnam and you start working basically as a white hat hacker
yep,
for the government and
yep.
for private industry. What was the thing that surprised you the most about the landscape of fraud and cyber attacks when you got out of prison?
Back then, right, I was doing this crime, cyber crime, technically by myself. Nobody helped
Right.
me to run this. I built everything. When I got back home, totally different. It become more professional, like a real company. They
Yeah.
working like a group. They have people, they have employees, they have salesperson. So I feel like, man, this is something more serious and a lot more money, way, way more money than
Yeah.
what I was earning before.
The advent of ransomware took place when you were in prison as well. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about the amount of investment ransomware groups put back into their product in their organizational infrastructure?
Yes, ransomware is it's kind of like a real business for cyber
Right.
criminal around the world, and it's a lot of money though, like millions and millions USD. But the amounts of the investment that they put into their ransomware operation is very little. They working together. They split up the money, the profit.
Who do you think communicates better with each other? Law enforcement and private industry, or bad? I always say that criminals operate in the gaps of communication because law enforcement might not do a great job of communicating with each other, but bad guys work collaboratively together and share information with each other.
That's true though. The cyber criminal, there is no borders. There is no laws, no regulation. They just collaborate and everything they build on trust. That's why. And they move very fast. If that guy doesn't look good anymore or didn't play well in the operation, they just remove immediately. They don't care. There is no
Right.
legal boundaries. So they move very quickly.
Obviously, that's a big problem for law enforcement because
Yeah.
we're tied to some very archaic information sharing laws under mutual lateral assistance treaties and things like that. There
Yeah.
are pockets of really good, outstanding information sharing, such as Europol and places like that, that you can see those force multipliers make a big difference, and
Yeah.
they do a wonderful job. But it has not been scaled out.
True.
The other thing I'm
100%.
curious the other thing I'm curious about from your perspective is I think that we're fighting ransomware all wrong. When I say we, I mean businesses fight it in a manner of like, what's the most important thing? And the most important thing is how quickly can I get back up online, right? How quickly can I
Right. That's
recover
true.
from an attack? So having a lot more emphasis put on provable recoveries of your backups. Do you
That's true.
think if people started to focus more on that than on using, endpoint detection and
Right.
monitoring, do you think that could change the game?
Number one things to prevent ransomware is about the backup. You have to have a durable backup, and the best method is 3-2-1, because hacker, right, they always finding the way to manipulate your employees to lure them to click a link or malicious file, right? Or they can get the 0-day vulnerabilities. It can be easily to bypass the security system, even the endpoint detection. They can buy easily to bypass that. It doesn't matter because they have time, they have money. It doesn't matter how big of your company. One day you will get hacked.
Right.
So,
It's not a
so
matter of if, but
right,
when.
right. If they
Yeah.
have time and good investment, they can do it. So those company with a good security solution, but they also need to have the best backup solution. That's the best way.
So
Right.
So we're asking the wrong questions, I think, in many instances, whether it's a board or whether or not it's leadership asking the cybersecurity professionals. In many instances, they probably ask two questions. Do we have backups and are they updated? But those are not the right questions to
True.
ask. Cyber criminals are quick to evolve, and we are not. What we're doing now is not working. It's not
Yes.
working in combating scams. It's not working in combating ransomware. It's not working in how we are leveraging law enforcement
Right.
at the federal, state, and local levels. It's just simply not working. And the scoreboard is dollar losses are
That's true.
continuing to rise. So there was an old old TV show in the US called Seinfeld, and in one of the episodes, one of the main characters, George, who was like kind of a loser, said, "For now on, I'm going to do everything the opposite of what I was doing." And then
That's
his
true.
life turned around immediately. And so, but there seems to be at least some sort of either defeatism or some, hey, this isn't going to happen to me,
Yep.
or even just a real lack of understanding again against what the adversary is, who they are, the level of effort that they'll go into attacking your system, big and small. And then
Yep.
then there's a whole bunch of other sort of things at play about even the negotiations. It's really easy to negotiate against somebody when you know, because you've had access into their systems, what their cyber
Right.
insurance policy will pay out in a ransomware attack. I kind of already have the answer of how much I'm getting paid, right? And
Right.
so again, a lot of people aren't thinking about that from the perspective of like continuing to pay people is putting more money into the system. And I get it. Sometimes these are extinction level events for businesses, but they are only extinction level because you didn't do what you needed to do to protect your business to begin with.
That's true. That's true.
Fair?
And
Okay.
and and based on what I see, one of the things that the threat actor, especially though in those ransomware groups, they're targeting like the human weakness in the system, because most of the developers or the engineer that running the system, they being overwhelmed, so many
Right.
systems that they need to handle and control and secure, and we don't have enough people, and so ransomware operator, they will try to fix them or even like manipulate them or even bribe them for money. In some
Right.
cases they bribe for the money to gain the asset to the internal VPNs network.
What you're saying is one, we've created a whole bunch of combinations of new and legacy systems that
Right.
probably don't interact together in the most efficient manner. You have end of life attacks on hardware that are often overlooked, and then at the same time, the human element, social engineering. Again, it goes to the scam epidemic that we have right now. The human error
Right.
is at play in nearly every attack, whether it's because of mistakes that have happened procedurally, administratively, or that the person what was taken advantage of. I really appreciate your time, Hewitt. I always love talking to you, my friend. Give us your prediction. Is it going to get worse before it gets better? What do you see when we're talking? It's late 2025,
Yep.
2027. What's the outlook for us?
To me, the next 2 to 5 years from now, the things will get more worse because AI, artificial intelligence,
Yes.
got into the place that good for business, but also good for bad actor as well. They also using AI to improving their techniques, their malware getting better to avoid detection. They also using AI to create like deepfake on and also like phishing email.
Yeah. And it lowers the barrier to entry, right? You were talking about SQL injections. You were talking about
Right.
things that required some level of sophistication. Now you don't need that.
No.
And that's going to be a massive problem.
Oh, they also having like AI automated scam system. They
Right?
also having like AI automated hacking system, and they've been developing and selling to each other on the dark web
Right.
and also right there on Telegram. You can buy it. And thing getting more serious, the real-time data. That's one of the best way for the hacker to approach a person or a company. And with the AI, it become like a perfect combination
Sure.
because AI can analyze data quickly.
Yeah.
Remember, you put a lot of time to read all of my email. Right? Imagine that you have AI, you could be done that in a day or in a few hours
Would have
to
been helpful.
analyze my behaviors, right?
Yeah.
My habits and the way that I write the email. You can ask
Yes.
AI
Yeah.
very quickly. The same way in the cybercrime world right now. Every time I see on Telegram, they always try to use AI. After this podcast, I will send you some stuff to WhatsApp so you can see how they change it and developing it way ahead of us. For
Yeah.
real.
I intend on spending a lot of time
Right.
talking to folks on this podcast about AI because I completely agree with you that it is going to get so much worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Those that adopt to new technology, and specifically leveraging AI to combat AI, and then also as a force multiplier to find places where we can't hire our way out of the problem and we can't train our way out of the problem. We're going to have to train AI models to do the job for
True.
us and to lower the gap in time between that the good guys have and the bad guys have, because right now the gap is wide and it's getting wider. We need to close
Yeah.
that gap and leverage the same technologies that the bad actors are doing.
That's
So
true.
yeah, we are in for a roller coaster, and we're still going down, unfortunately. My hope is at some point in the very near future, things like this and ones that other folks are having throughout this space will start to show payoff with some sort of dividends. I don't think it's going to be in the next year or 2 years, but
That's true.
ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're listening and your job is to protect your infrastructure, your organization, I don't want to speak for Hugh, but I would say the thing that you would want to look at most is protecting your backups, making sure that you have a provable recovery
That's true.
to get back, and then that makes the bad actor move on to something else.
That's true.
Then, if you're a person, freeze your credit. Freeze everybody's credit. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, freeze. You got to freeze your credit because we're talking
Good
to my
recommendation.
man Hugh, who was the
Right.
most prolific identity thief in US history, who is telling us all of your information is available for sale online
Very cheap
for
price. A
less
few
than a
dollar.
cent.
Very
Well,
few.
Hugh, thank you so much, my friend. I
Right.
really
Thank
appreciate
you
your
so much.
time.
Right.
And thank you for listening, everybody. And we'll see you on the next
Thank
episode
you.
at Detonation Point presented by Elastio. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thanks.